everyone, this is me, Nicky Sinha. A very warm welcome to our YouTube channel. Now, in the last session, we had a discussion on a very important administrative setup of the Mughals, particularly Akbar, and that was the Mansabdari system, right? We've had a discussion on it, and as I had told you, that I will be doing a part 2 of it because there were certain things which were still left to be discussed. All right, so let's start with that. All right, so now we're going to discuss the structure of the Mansabdari system. Now, as you can see, there was a dual representation. Now, what do you mean by dual representation? So there were two things you have to understand. One is the Zat, all right, and other is the Savar. Now, what is Zat and what is Savar? So, Zat is going to indicate the rank as well as the salary of the person. Okay. Now, let me explain what is Zat and Savar. So, Zat will explain the rank plus salary. Now, suppose I tell you that I am a vice president in a company. Don't you think that according to my position, that if I'm the vice president in a company, you can also make out that, okay, if she is a vice president in a company, I'm sure her salary also would be equal to the position, right? So, on the basis of my position, you can also make out the amount of salary, tentative, that I would be getting, isn't it? So, if I'm at a good position, I would be getting a good salary, isn't it? So, if I say that a person has earned a Zat rank of 5,000, okay, also known as 5,000 Mansabdari, okay. So, if a person has a 5,000 Mansabdari, which means the position is obviously very high, isn't it? The position is really, really high as compared to 100, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. The position is really high. So, can you also not understand that the salary would also be equal to this rank? Isn't it? If the rank is high, that also means that the position is going to be high. Okay. So, this is what your Zat indicates. Zat indicates your position and your salary. So, if I say that you have a 5,000 Mansabdari, 5,000 is your position, and according to your position, you would have your salary as well. Now, the other thing we have is the Savar rank. Now, this is represented, the cavalry rank, and it denotes the number of horses and cavalry men that were to be maintained by the Mansabdar. All right. So, what do you mean by the Savar? Savar basically means number of armed contingent. All right. Number of armed contingent a Mansabdar is supposed to maintain. So, in general, how does this work? So, basically, a Mansabdar would be given a Jagir, all right? This is a piece of land. Now, the Mansabdar would be responsible for collecting revenue from that piece of land. Now, whatever revenue they have collected, it is going to be divided into two parts. Suppose they have collected a revenue of 10,000, right? And they have a Mansabdari of 5,000. That means 5,000 is their salary. So, suppose they have collected a revenue of 10,000. From that 10,000, they will keep 5,000 with themselves because that is their salary. All right. And the rest 5,000 which is left, that would be used to maintain an armed contingent according to the Savar rank of the person. So, if the Savar rank is 1,000, that means the person is supposed to maintain 1,000 cavalry men and 1,000 horses. Now, they had to be of the best quality possible. Now, the position of the Mansabdar in the hierarchy depended upon his Zat. So obviously upon his position and his salary. All right. And on the basis of that, the Mansabdars have been classified as, let's take a look. Okay. So we have third class of Mansabdars. Mansabdars were put in this classification when the number of Sawar was less than half the number of Zat. Alright, so if the Zat is 5,000, then the Sawar is going to be, so if Zat is 5,000, Sawar is going to be 2,500. Right? Yes. Second class, under this classification, the number of Sawar is equal to half the number of Zat. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I made a mistake here. Here it has to be less than half, okay? So half of 5,000 is 2,500. So maybe it would be 2,000, okay? In the second class, the number of Sawar is equal to half. So if Zat is equal to 5,000, all right, Sawar is going to be half, which is 2,500, okay? First class of Mansabdar is when the Sawar and the Zat number is equal to each other. So, if Zat is 5,000, then Sawar also has to be 5,000. So, they would be equal in number. Okay. So, let's see why and how were the Mansabdars getting their salary. The salary of the Mansabdars would obviously be according to their ranks, right? Now, there were Mansabdars who received payment through land, and this land was known as your Jagir. Okay, what is this land known as? This land is known as your Jagir, all right? And who are the Jagirdars? The Mansabdars are the Jagirdars. Why? Because they have been given land, all right, for their salary. So instead of giving them the salary in cash, the salary was given in the form of land. Okay. Mansabdars, yes. So basically, Jagirdars were given the right to collect revenue from that particular piece of land. And as I told you, the revenue would be divided into two portions. One is your salary, and the other one is the number of armed contingent you are required to maintain. Okay. Now, Mansabdars who received their payments in cash, they were known as your Nakdi, fine. And the post of Mansabdar was definitely never hereditary. In fact, Mansabdars would be constantly transferred from one location to another location just so that they do not, build in a lot of relationships, so that they do not have a strong hold in that particular Mansabdar, in that particular area. All right. Now, what were their military responsibilities? The Mansabdars had to bring in their cavalrymen for review, and they obviously had to get them registered, all right? They were responsible for maintaining a specified number of horses and cavalrymen. All right, so this was their responsibility, guys. So basically, they would collect revenue, all right? And from that revenue, they're going to divide it into two parts. One part would be kept as their salary, and the other part, they would have to maintain an armed contingent, which would be constantly reviewed by the king and his officials. Okay, so let us see how the number of Mansabdars, fall. How is there a decline in the Mansabdari system? So Akbar maintained 1803 Mansabdars. By the end of Aurangzeb's reign, it had risen to 14,499. Now this rise in Mansabdari also means the fall in Mansabdari. Why and how? Let's understand. See, Mansabdari can only continue as long as there is expansion, because you have to give them land, isn't it? And also, if the king is strong enough to keep these Mansabdars in check, you have a number of Mansabdars here, but you do not have expansion at the same rate. So a lot of Mansabdars were not given land for a very long time. They were not given salary, but they were expected to maintain the armed contingent from their own pocket, which resulted in a lot of corruption and a lot of exploitation of the peasants, right? Also, the king was quite weak, isn't it? Aurangzeb spent 25 years of his life in his Deccan campaign, leaving all these Mansabdars quite independent, and hence that was like a death blow to the Mughal Empire, which ultimately contributed to its decline. Okay. In Akbar's reign, there were 29 Mansabdars with the rank of 5,000 Zat. By Aurangzeb's reign, this rank has increased up to 79. Now again, understand, when you have a person, when you have a Mansabdar with 5,000 Zat, it also means that you have to give them salary. And salary in cash or in land, giving 5,000 as salary is actually quite a huge amount, isn't it? So that was another drain on the treasury. Okay. So this increase in the Mansabdars during the reign of Aurangzeb resulted in Jagirdari and agrarian crisis, which also resulted in the collapse of the Mansabdari system. So as I explained to you, this is the Jagirdari and the agrarian crisis. So when Jagirdars were given revenue assignments, they were not given land because there was lack of it. They were expected to maintain armed contingents from their own pocket, which resulted in a lot of corruption. There was a lot of oppression and suppression of the peasantry, and a lot of unnecessary taxes which were being collected from the peasants. So who was at the burning end of it? It was the peasants who were bearing the brunt of this. All right. Now, in Akbar's reign, the system worked near perfect. The revenue collected by the Mansabdar from his Jagir was transferred to the emperor, right? And it was enough to pay the salary. These Jagirs in the initial days were carefully assessed, fine. They were not given Jagirs just like that. No, these Jagirs were carefully assessed so that their revenues were equal to the salary, so that at least there would be no corruption, isn't it? However, in the later stages, there was shortage of Jagir, as I explained. Also, the size of the Jagir started to shrink. Why? Because you don't have that kind of expansion. The kind of expansion which happened during Akbar's reign, that kind of expansion you did not have under Aurangzeb's reign, isn't it? So the size also started shrinking. In the Aurangzeb era, the revenue collected by Mansabdars for the government was not enough to pay the salary, right? Why? Because again, there is a lot of corruption. Peasants are already paying whatever they could, even more than they could, isn't it? There is no expansion to provide them with new lands or with new Jagirs, right? So ultimately, this resulted in what is known as the agrarian or the Jagirdari crisis, all right? So this was all about the Mansabdari system, which is a very important system as far as your syllabus is concerned, as far as questions are concerned. So I really hope that this was absolutely okay with you. If you still have any doubts and difficulties, please feel free to address them with me in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to help you with it. All right. So this is me, Nicky Sinha, signing off. Till then, please take care, and I will see you in the new video. Thank you.